Now here, after opening the workbench, you will find that we just created the root username and the password is the same. Okay, and this is the default localhost. You will find that for you as well, you will see that the localhost is the port, this port number is 3306. You will find the same, right? So here you can see, now we are opening the workbench. Now this is my workbench. Okay, let me just restore the file, because the file is right, I guess around 89 MB, which is nothing but our data that we are using in our this particular session. Okay, this is my data. Will be, you know just reading this particular data, you will find that this data over here. Okay, you will see that I already you know just executed this, or added this data in my schemas. Schemas are nothing but the how many databases are there. You will find that this is my one database. You will find that how many tables are there in my employees database. So this is nothing but my how many tables are there. Okay, like this you will find that the second invoice database. Okay, and the my databases, these are just the sample one. Okay, we'll be talking about the employees and we'll be using this. Okay, so like you are downloading this particular thing. So while we are just understanding what SQL is and what the relational databases is, because many of you I guess don't know about this, so that's why let's go with our PPT, right? So yes, MS SQL is nothing but the Microsoft SQL. And MySQL, like there are multiple as we know, there are multiple programming language. In the same way, you will find that there are multiple database languages are there. So MySQL is one of this, and you will find that the PostgreSQL, you will find that the Microsoft SQL. But I guess Microsoft SQL, this is again, you can say that the MS SQL is PostgreSQL, you can say. Okay, because that PostgreSQL is created by the Microsoft. Yes, you can use that as well, MySQL shell. Okay, but workbench, why? Because in the workbench you will be able to see the code. Okay, and also you'll be able to see the, is there any error, is there any warning that you are running that particular code. So while running the code, whether your code is running or it is throwing some error, or it is giving some warnings like that. So for this, okay, Microsoft Workbench is good, right? So you can use that as well, MySQL shell as well. Okay, you can even use the command line as well of the MySQL. Okay, so this is the thing. Now if we're talking about, guys, the relational databases and the MySQL, so see, MySQL, how many of you know the SQL long form? Do you know SQL long form of this? Yeah, so that's why we'll be talking about the SQL, or like instead of saying, most of the the students and like most of the peoples are using the SQL, uh, or you can simply say that the SQL is the proper, we can say, the word. Okay, now okay, like the, we also as we know, structure query language, okay, like commonly known as a SQL. Okay, so basically we can say it is a very standard programming language for relational databases. Okay, so like if you're talking about the relational databases, so we can simply say that the like in the databases there are multiple tables, and in all the tables you will find that the some kind of relationship between each other table. Okay, so which means that, okay, you can get the access of all the data, all the tables in that particular database. Those are relational one. Okay, because sometimes might be we need the two data set, three data set. So at that time, instead of using the Excel file, we can simply use the database. Because if you create the Excel file and in that you create the multiple sheets, so you will find that you can't create the relationship between the sheets in Excel, but you can create the relation over here in the SQL, right? So that is the main advantage of it. And you will find that the second thing is that in the relational databases, you don't need to, you don't need to go ahead and like there is no limit for adding the data. Like for the Excel there is a limit. Okay, if you go and create the the one new Excel file, and you will see that, like, let me show you this thing. Excel worksheet. This is my Excel worksheet. Let me go and open this. So you will find that there is some limit, like there is a limit on the rows and the limit on the columns. Okay, so do you know the limit for the Excel sheet? In one Excel sheet, how many rows are there? Like, see, this is my the first row, this is my second row. Okay, likewise, if you wanted to see the last row of this particular sheet, so you can simply use the control and down arrow. So you will see that how many rows are there? 10,48,576 rows are there, right? How many rows? 10,48,576. Okay, and how many columns are there? So if you wanted to see the columns, so you will find that there are around 60,000 plus columns are there, right? So you can see the columns like this. Okay, you can see the columns. This is going to be the the last column, I can say. So like this. And if you wanted to go and check this, so you can you can use the control and the the arrows, whether lower arrows or the right arrow or left arrow. So you can directly go with the uh, like the end part. Okay, like this. So this is the thing over here. So let me just go ahead and understand our MySQL. Now, what is SQL? So as we know, SQL is it stands for the structure query language. Okay, why we are using the SQL? Basically, we are using the SQL to basically create, remove, alter the database, right? And the database objects in a database management system. Basically, to store, you know, retrieve, update the data in the databases. Okay, we can also use a like the SQL. Basically it's a standard language for basically creating, accessing, manipulating DBMS, which is nothing but the database management system, right? SQL also works for all modern relational database management system like SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, right? So you will find that there's so many different things. Now after this, let's understand what are the different types of the SQL commands, what are the different types of the SQL queries are there. Okay, so like you are writing some, like in Python, if you are writing something, so that is nothing but Python code. If you are writing something in the R, so that is nothing but R code. If you are writing something in the SQL, you can say SQL command or SQL query, right? Now, how many different types of the SQL commands are there? So you can see the type. Okay, how many different types are there? Total 5 different types are there: DDL, DML, DCL, TCL, and DQL. Okay, so let's go and understand one by one. Okay, so if we're talking about the DDL, so basically DDL stands for the data definition language, right? And basically DDL commands are used for creating, you can say altering the database and the database objects in the relational database management system. Like you can create database, you can create the table, you can alter the table, and you can you know do multiple things. Okay, and the the we can say the most used DDL commands are nothing but this: create, drop, alter, truncate, right? So if you're talking about the create, so basically we are in the name itself. Okay, we are using it to create a database, right? Or a database object like the table, in that index, view, trigger, store, procedure, like so many things we can do in that. Okay, with the help of create. Then what about drop? Okay, if you're talking about the drop, so we can simply know that, okay, like to remove the particular database or any database object like the table and all. Okay, what about alter? So if you're talking about the alter, to basically restructure the database object, right, doing any modification in that. What about truncate? Okay, so basically the truncate command is it is used to basically remove all the data from the table, right? So that is nothing but the the use case of the truncate command simply. What about the DML? DML is nothing but data manipulation language. Okay, and we are using DML commands, okay, for manipulating data in relational database management system, which is nothing but you know this thing. So what are the different things you can do? Okay, you can go and you can add, you can remove, you can update your data in the database system, like you can use the insert into table name. Okay, like we'll be talking about the examples as well. Okay, and most useful commands are nothing but insert, update and delete. Okay, in the name itself, insert means you can simply insert the data in the databases, which means that you can insert the data in the database table, right? If you want, if you go with the update, which means that you can be able to update the data in the database table, right? Then what about the delete? Again, you can remove the data from the table of the database, right? Then what about the DQL? Okay, DQL stands for the data query language. Okay, ignore this particular term TCL. Okay, so let's go first TCL, then let us go with the DQL. So if we're talking about the TCL, so TCL basically stands for the transaction control language. Okay, and why we are using these commands? So for basically handle transactions in the databases. Okay, so basically transactions ensure data integrity in multi-user environment. Now what is data integrity? So which means that if you are handling the data, so which means that data integration, which means you are collecting the data from various different sources. Okay, that is nothing but the data integration. Okay, so like the this particular we can like if you're talking about the TCL, so basically we are using it to handle the transactions. Okay, and transaction ensure data integrity, right? Now basically, like we are using TCL commands, okay, like for for rollback and for to commit the data modification in the databases. Okay, and the most used TCL commands, which are nothing but commit, rollback, save point. Like we have also like we have the set transactions as well, right? Then we have the DQL. DQL is a the most famous one, I can say. Okay, because if you go and if you start writing the code after entering your data, updating and inserting, okay, after done with that, if you wanted to go with the you know any any extraction, like if you wanted to extract the particular column from the data, so at that time you can start your query from the select statement, right? So that is the that is nothing but a DQL, and basically DQL is nothing but the data query language. Okay, so why we are using DQL? As I told you, okay, we are using this to extract the data from the database table, or you can simple, or you can say you can fetch the data, right? So like I'll show you in the practical, like each and every command or each and every query you will see that is start with the select, right? So you will find that like for doing multiple things like selecting the table. Okay, if you wanted to uh, if you wanted to go ahead with the understand any particular clause, like the where clause, having clause like this as well, so you can get it. Okay, you can use it to apply the aggregate functions, you can find out the aggregate function as well, right? So basically, if you're talking about the DCL, so DCL is nothing but the data control language. Okay, and why we are using it? Basically, we are using it to provide and providing the data as well as taking back the access rights from on the database and the, you can say that the database objects. So basically if you are working in a company, okay, and the company, as we know, all the company has its database, right? And you will find that the database is very big database. Okay, you will find that the database of the employees, database of the, you know, any client, database of the, you know, multiple projects as well. So like the company never give you the, you know, the full access, whole access of your, of the database, because you will find that the employees database, okay, it's only accessed by the management team, right? And if one employee, like the team of the employees are working in this particular project, let's say any project X, so you know, the support team only give you the access of the that particular data of that project. Okay, so you can use the DCL data control language to grant the access of the database or any table in that particular database, or revoke the access, right? So that's, you can use the DCL. Now let us go ahead and see why to use SQL, right? So as we know, because of the, it's a relational database management system programming language. Okay, like as we know what is relational database is, okay, which means that, okay, in the data, okay, you will never find that there is one single table. Okay, you will always find that there are multiple tables. Let's say if I talking about the employees database management system, okay, so in the employees database management system you will find that the data of the employees, right? Then the data of the you can say that the department of managers, you know, data of the departments, like the data of the salaries, right? Like that. So you will find that always multiple tables are there in the database, so you will find that there is relationship between each and every table in that. Okay, so for that you can use SQL to get the access to create that particular database, to update that, to alter that, you know, to give the access of the multiple people, or to revoke the access, right? Or you can even get the access of the SQL database, and after that you can create the, you know, you can go and solve your any database, you know, data science project as well, right? You can create the dashboard as well, right? So for relational database, okay, like we need SQL. Then performing all basic operations in databases, as we discussed. Okay, why we need, you know, the SQL? Because if you see that, okay, like there are multiple databases, there are multiple tables, okay, and you can use the SQL to get the access of it, as well as you can do the multiple different things. Okay, you can apply, you know, different operations on your database, okay, to understand that particular your data, right? Like like as we discussed previously, we have a data manipulation language, data definition language, data query language, data control language, right? So you will find that with the help of this we can do the, you know, we can apply different operations on my data set, right? That is the thing. Now after this you will find that for transaction control in database we need the SQL. Okay, we also say that the SQL is also used to maintain the transactions occurring in the databases, right? Like if you know, like the if you see that the many times like databases upgrading, okay, because you will find that, okay, like either daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, database is updating. Like if you're talking about the employees, so if the company big, so as we know, like each and every day few people, those who are joining the company and those who are, you know, left the company. So for that we'll have to, you know, maintain the transaction in the database. So that's why again we need the SQL. Then you will find that the union, SQL union, So basically, like in relational algebra, we use the union operator to combine two sets into a single set with unique values in it, right? So that's why we are using a union, right? If we like in the practical, we try to cover this particular part as well, right? Then we have the SQL joins. Okay, if you see there are multiple columns, okay, sorry, multiple tables are there in your database. So how you can access that particular table, multiple database, right? If there is a, let's say, employee is there and there is a department is there, you know two different tables are there. So how you can use those you wanted to, like, if you wanted to take one column from this data and one column from this data, so how you can do this? You can use the SQL joins. There are multiple types of join: inner join, outer join, left join, right join, full join, right? So many joins are there. We'll be talking about this in the practical, right?